I'm Pablo Folielias. Welcome to the programme. Libya's Red Crescent says more than 11,000 people have died in catastrophic floods in the city of Derna. That death toll has yet to be verified, and Libyan officials say it's likely to rise. Large parts of the coastal city were swept away after torrential rain caused two dams on the Wadi Derna River to burst. Now there are concerns about the spread of disease, with many bodies lying among the ruins.
Keeping the hope alive. Rescue teams search buildings and scour piles of rubble on the streets of Derna, looking for signs of life.
There are places that are difficult to reach, and there are survivors stuck under the rubble, and we still receive messages from them. Thank God that mobile phone networks are working again. Some of the messages say that they are in a specific place and are asking for somebody to rescue them, but the rubble prevents team from reaching them.
Emergency workers have been collaborating with Libyan military and volunteers around the clock in the areas worst affected by the flood. But finding survivors is getting less likely by the day. Libya's parliament approved a crisis fund equivalent to €2 billion to help citizens affected and to rebuild shattered infrastructure. The MP for Derna emphasised the need for immediate help.
Bodies are scattered everywhere, and the beaches are now littered with these corpses. We're still in urgent need of another technical crew to help recover them and prepare suitable places for their proper burial.
Clean-up efforts along the coastline are underway, and divers are searching everywhere for bodies. And as the sea continues to return human remains to shore, it is still too soon to measure the scale of human loss.
Ahmed Bayram is with the relief organisation Norwegian Refugee Council and joins us from neighbouring Tunisia. Great to see you on DW News again. It's been 5 days since the flood ravaged Derna and surrounding areas. Can you tell us what the situation is like there now?
Good morning. Now we have officially moved into the next stage of this, of reacting and responding to this disaster. Obviously, there is still hope of retrieving people from under the rubble, from under destruction, but, hope is slowly, unfortunately, fading. Now is the time for aid agencies like Norwegian Refugee Council and others to go in and provide relief. And this is what we are doing, starting today. We're hoping to get into this disaster zone and start helping people. There are lots of missing people. Relatives have not lost hope. However, it is going to be a miracle to find anybody alive now on the 5th day of rescue operations. The difficulties, there will be a mountain of challenges ahead of these aid workers, and they need the weight of the world behind them. As I said before, we will be providing blankets, mattresses, anything that could help people cope, to some extent with the situation. But again, we need urgent support.
Tell us more about this operation. You just said it there. It's going to be a huge undertaking. It sounds like is beginning now. Is this going to be going to take a long time? Is it going to take a long time for Derna to recover from this?
It is going to be a long road back for these people for many reasons. A lot of them have lost everything they had, their homes, their belongings, let alone losing loved ones. Displacement is going to be huge. Don't forget the roads have been closing all these days. Now that they have gradually reopening, they are gradually reopening, and that means we expect a wave of displacement. 18 shelters have opened in Benghazi, which is around 5 hours drive, which means we are expecting quite a large number of displaced people because if you have lost your home and you are in a broken city, in a broken village, you want to get out. So it is going to take not days, not weeks, not months, These people have been through conflict, displacement, and now this disaster is going to complicate their life even more.
Many people have expressed anger with their leaders for failing to prevent this disaster. How hard has it been for your organisation and other organisations to deal with essentially a fractured, a broken political system in Libya?
I have to say, that we have been in Libya for 6 years now. We are operating in the east. As I said, we're moving around towns, and now we're going to provide relief. This is not particularly an issue for us. Particularly that we do work with the authorities on the ground, and we do coordinate with other organizations and local partners. And, I would say these local heroes belong to these communities. There are hundreds of them at NRC, and there are, thousands of others. They do belong to these communities they support, and they are actually motivated to support despite their losses. So for us, the only issue that stands in our way really is resources, and that's why we have been appealing for more money to come.
Ahmed Bayram of the Norwegian Refugee Council joining us from Tunisia today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joining me now from Athens is Aya Burweila. She's a widely published expert and commentator on security with a special focus on Libya. Thanks so much for joining us here on DW. We just heard there the UN saying many of these deaths could have been avoided if warning systems had worked. Could I ask you to explain to us why there was such a catastrophic failure here?
I think first and foremost, Derna, like many cities in Libya, lack investment in infrastructure. And this is a problem that has been going on for decades. As far as emergency notification is concerned, right now in Europe, especially since the coronavirus, governments have invested in software that give emergency alerts to people's phones directly. Here in Greece, it's very, very common to get an alert on your mobile phone from the government in the event of impending natural disaster. Of course, these kind of advancements is characteristic of Europe, European country response, but we have to remember that in Libya, such systems are not in place. Now, there was warnings by public authorities, but without such a system, such a sophisticated system, to reach people en masse on their mobile phones, I think a lot of people did not receive these warnings. So, of course, there is a failure on the whole, a government failure to warn the people of Derna. Now, as far as infrastructure is concerned, the reason why these floods, Storm Daniel, was especially destructive in Derna, of course, is because the two dams broke. What should have been a flood turned into basically a tsunami that wiped out the city. Derna's problems date back decades, and it is characteristic, I think, of the capital's neglect in general of the eastern region. And this is a problem that dates back to the Gaddafi regime.
OK. We know that Libya has two rival political authorities. Are they now cooperating to provide disaster relief?
In the past 24 hours, 23 flights have been gone to Libya from international donors. And this, of course, international flights are done through requests by the government, the Tripoli government. So there has been action, there has been cooperation. Of course, not as timely as wished. Part of it is, of course, the lack of cooperation and really the lack of expertise amongst Libya to deal with such an unprecedented flood. So there is cooperation. It should have happened much swifter, much more timely, but it's getting there.
OK. Libya, of course, is an oil-rich country. One wonders where all of that money is gone. Why is that not being used now to deal with this situation?
That is probably the most important question in dealing with this disaster. This disaster is both a natural disaster and a man-made disaster. Storm Daniel is a natural disaster. The horrific consequences that we saw afterwards is a man-made disaster. The dams weren't maintained properly. It was a catastrophe waiting to happen. And this, of course, goes down to corruption. Corruption is a human security threat. It It is responsible for all these, not just for the dams and infrastructure, but I think it is responsible for the substandard living that Libyans face throughout in their daily lives. Libya is one of the most corrupt countries in the world. There is no formal audits, meaningful audits of government spending. Government public funds go to governments that are not publicly elected. What happens when a government is not accountable to the people? What you get is self-servants, not public servants. And this is a problem that Libya has gone through for decades. The Gaddafi regime was a tyranny, and it was characterized by grift. And this tradition continues today. Construction corruption is huge. We see here kickbacks between businesses, lack of meeting standards of buildings, lack of urban planning. So literally, so corruption here plays a huge role.
Libya expert Aya Burweila, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us here on DW Today. Thanks for your analysis.